Hey y'all, it's Diana from the Dianaverse, and I am here today to talk to you about the new moon in Cancer. It's happening tomorrow on Monday in the morning, I believe, somewhere near around noon. I didn't write down the exact time. This is going to be the most Cancer point of the year, so happy birthday to all our Cancers out there. I'm a Leo, so I believe in a all month kind of birthday thing. But so if you've already had your birthday, I'm still wishing you a happy birthday. So Cancer is a sign that is mutable because it comes at the change of the seasons, right? When we move from late spring into summer. Cancer already started a few weeks ago, so that was back closer to the summer solstice, so that was the changeover into summer. It's ruled by water. It's a water sign, so it's a time of year when things are moving. Water moves, right? At least healthy water. You don't want stagnant water. So healthy water will be flowing. It will be moving. The seasons are changing. Things are moving. So although Cancer has a bit of a reputation as a homebody, there's actually a lot moving and going on with Cancer. It's just not necessarily visible to the outside world. It's an internal sign where we go within and we kind of check out our inner milieu, right? So water, as you probably know, is known to hold memory. There have been studies done on this. Dr. Masudo in Japan did this with a lot of photography, and it's used a lot in electronics kinds of things, like with semiconductors, I think. I'm not a technical person on that, but I know that there are ways, ways that water can conduct electricity, it can conduct things. So water holds that memory for us. All the water that is on our planet has been here for a really long time. It just gets recycled, right, through all these earth cycles that we have, where it falls from the sky, goes to the earth, evaporates, goes back up in the air, makes clouds, and then it falls back down again. It goes through these cycles. And in our lives, we also go through cycles with things. As I talked about last month, and I hope y'all worked on some of your emotional baggage stuff, because I mentioned that last month. Right now we have this cycle going where the new moon is coming after the full moons. This just happens because of the natural cycles of the earth and our rotation around the sun, etc., and the moon going around the earth, where sometimes we have our full moon and then the culmination of that, we move forward at the new moon. I think a lot of times people think of it quite simply where we have the new moon, we come up with new stuff, and then that culminates on the full moon, and then we keep going like that. But it actually kind of switches around occasionally. So at the moment, we're in the other cycle where our full moon comes first. It kind of brings our stuff up, and then on the new moon, we take new action towards our goals, our feelings, whatever it is we're working on. And Cancer is definitely a sign of the feelings. It's the memories, but it's also often the emotional triggers that we carry with us. So this is a good time to decide how you want to feel about some of those emotional triggers in your life. This can be things from childhood, is often the poster child for this. So things that happened and then they stuck with you, like you didn't get the love you expected or wanted, and then that makes an impression. You got rejected, whatever it is. It could be family. It's often family in back in your childhood. It can also be early experiences with friends or systems of society or whatever. And those things stick with you because they have an emotional charge. In fact, if you've listened to The Body Keeps the Score, I thought that was a really excellent kind of research investigation into how the body stores those triggers, how the triggers influence our actual physical development sometimes, like neurologically in the brain. and those things can get stuck in there. So any kind of movement that you can do around those past triggers that you have would be really, really good these couple of days while the moon is in Cancer. Emotional release, if you do cry therapy or yelling, dancing, make it fun, right? Cancer is also notably connected to children, so creativity and the wonderment that children have, even if we're hiding it deep inside ourselves, we don't bring that out in the world because it's not safe. It's in there. So do your stuff with fun. Be playful. Let that stuff come up. If you need a good cry, take a good cry. Just let it roll, right? It's good not to get that stuff stagnant in your body. And sometimes we've developed whole systems in our life around these things where maybe something happened, you didn't get the attention when you wanted it, maybe didn't get a great Christmas or a birthday, or just a million things that can happen in a family, right? Where you feel like you weren't really listened to or you weren't loved, and that sticks with you. And we take that as forward with this as kind of the truth, right? And that's not always really true. It can be one moment in time, and then we've stuck with that and we've built all this system around us. We've got Saturn in Pisces, another water sign. It's a good time to dismantle systems that don't serve us anymore. We tend to remember the things we didn't like. We don't always notice those things that might have been done for us or that were pleasant or where someone tried to make up for something. We're all human. Your family might have been doing the best that they could and tried to show you love in the ways that they were able to. And that one, those particular trigger moments stay with us, and we aren't able to receive and accept that love that we might have been able to take with us. So this is a good chance to rewrite some of your stories about yourself and notice the things that trigger you, notice the things that come up, or if you know one that you're always really triggered about, it might be a good time to rewrite the script on that. Just come up with a new story around it, or think about like other times when someone actually, and you might have learned much later. I mean, I know in my family I have those things. Everyone has those things, right? And then years and years and years later, my mother was like, "Oh, we were always so proud of you," and I was like, "Really?" Because I didn't feel like that's what it was. So I'm rewriting that script, because what I'm holding so firmly, so tightly, isn't necessarily the truth, and I want to let that flow. Right. So that's the moon. Every new moon is when the sun and the moon are in the same sign together. So they're both in Cancer, and that's why I say this is the most Cancer moment of the year. Now we've also got other things going on in the sky, right? So one quick thing is that a lot of the inner planets, which are our more personal planets, which is like Mercury, Mars, Venus, the moon, those are all considered personal planets because they're in the inner orbits of the solar system. And those are moving fairly quickly right now. So we're going to be evaluating things quite quickly or changing our approach. We can move a lot of things for ourselves quite quickly. On the other hand, juxtaposing that, we've got a lot of the outer planets are actually retrograde this summer. So this is more the impersonal planets. Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, all those asteroids. Those are all out there, and they're more societal because they move at a much slower rate anyway, and they tend to define epochs. Is that how you pronounce that? I don't know. Someone can let me know how you're supposed to pronounce that word. So these will move over maybe several years to a decade to even sometimes hundreds of years, like with Pluto. So those are more impersonal, they say, and they're more the societal pressures that are pushing on us as our closer planets, our personal planets, are trying to change and move and do all these things. We've got this pressure from society that's kind of stepping back and slowing down. So there's a lot of dynamic tension going on. People may be super stressed about things that they don't feel like they have control over, like money or systems. This could be health systems, it could be monetary systems, it could be legal systems, it could be all kinds of systems. And so things are moving. We've got the Saturn and Pisces, but they're retrograde, so we're backtracking before we're really going forward. And the things that we're working on with this particular moon, they kind of have this tie back to April when we had the eclipses. And whatever we were initiating was more planning at that time. Now we're doing stuff, and I know some people that this is true for. They started planning things, and now they're like actually moving on those plans. But we're not going to really see the fruition of this stuff until the full moon in Capricorn. Capricorn is the opposite sign from Cancer, and that's going to be next winter when we're going to see a little more where the dust settles on the things that we're working on. So that's a thing. And then we've got this cross going on. So on the other side, the opposite side from the moon, and it's not exact on the day of the new moon, but it's within a couple of days of the new moon. So it's worth mentioning because it is creating that tension, is Pluto, and Pluto moves very slowly. So it's really almost, barely a degree sometimes when it's moving. So Pluto is a planet of transformation, but also like resources are the things that come from under the earth. It can be our power, where we feel power. And so when it's in a dynamic cross like this with the moon, which is our emotional body, and then the nodes, it can make us feel disempowered at first. You can feel like there's things out of your control. And that's so that you can check yourself and say, well, where is my power in this? What do I have control over? Because sometimes we're going along letting other things determine our fate, and we could be doing a lot more ourselves, or we need to be doing more ourselves. So the nodes of fate, these are the nodes of the moon, and they're kind of a funny thing because they're not like real points. I mean, they are real points in space, but they're not a planet. They're not something there. There's nothing there exactly. But it is where on the ecliptic we have our lunar eclipses that happen. They will be in particular signs at these certain points in space. And that's what the nodes are. Those are those points where we have those eclipses. So the nodes of the moon are always going to be in the signs where the eclipses are happening over about a 1.5 year period. Like it moves and changes signs about every 1.5 year. And contrary to a lot of the planets and things that we look at, it moves backwards. So we've been in Taurus and Scorpio. Now we're going to be moving into Aries and Libra. And Libra is at the south node, which is kind of our comfort zone. And then the north node has just moved into Aries. And where Libra is more of a group dynamic, right? It's where you connect with the world. Aries is the self and what we're trying to accomplish. So we're going to be leaving behind, because the south node is often associated with leaving things behind, leaving behind some of our codependent, our Libra traits, where we might people please, or we do things that aren't necessarily quite how we want to do them, but we're trying to work with other people. And we want to be able to connect with people, because you really can't do anything in life without other people. But we don't want to necessarily compromise ourselves or get codependent in an unhealthy way. So that Aries is on the other side. That's going to be where we take initiative, where we try to get movement going. And so there's a back and forth when they're in opposition like this, where we have a plan, we want to take an initiative, and then we have to check in with the other people that we're involved with, whether it's a relationship or a friendship or a jobs scenario or all of the above together. Um, there's this back and forth, and we're going to be doing this over the next year and a half. So we'll see things popping up. They're squaring the Pluto right now to start this off, right almost at the beginning of the nodal change. So this is going to be a dynamic for like the next year and a half, where it's like, okay, where do we need to take power, which also means taking responsibility for our part in things so that it works for everybody. But it doesn't get to where you're doing things that aren't working for you, but it's working for somebody else. There's just going to be this whole balancing act going on, and nudges where we have to take initiative and get the ball rolling. So that's another thing going on at the moment. I'm working with, for the Cancer part of this lunation, I have a coral hagstone. I'm doing the hagstone is my stone for this month, and if you want to know more about hagstones, I have a little article about it on my Patreon this month. That's something I'm considering changing. Like Patreon, now that they're kind of a big platform, they kind of want big people on their site so that they can charge bigger fees. Oops, kick the tripod. They just keep upping their fees and adding fees. So I'm thinking about switching to some other site, and I'm wondering what other people are using and liking. Like, do you like Substack? Do you use that? Let me know in the comments below. And also, please like and subscribe, because it helps my algorithm, but it also helps you see when I post these, because I don't always put them on all the social medias to remind you. I try to do that, but I don't always have the time to do that. So if you subscribe, you'll get an automatic notification, and then you won't miss any of them. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out where I want to change to. I don't feel like Patreon is working for me at the moment. So if you have comments about that, let me know down below. So I'm using my hagstone. And then for the plant this month, the classic moon plant would be mugwort. So if you have availability to a bathtub, a mugwort bath would be fantastic. Mugwort is great for the skin. You can just use your mesh bag, or you can make strong tea of it on your stove and then strain it into your bath, and then like splash that water all over yourself. So if you've ever been to the Korean spas, they always have mugwort, I guess it's like a trough, a big water container that's full of mugwort water that you can just like dip and pour over yourself, because it's fantastic for the skin. If you don't have a bathtub, another thing you could do is to gather the mugwort and then make yourself a dream pillow. Dream pillows would be great to use for the moon too. The tarot card for the moon is great for this month. So it kind of goes, it's not focusing. Let's see if I can get it to focus better. No, it doesn't want to focus. Well, shoot. I hope you can see that. It's not focusing as well as I would like. But you've got the priestess who's there looking at the moon. She's in very old-fashioned clothes. This is from the Zerner Farber Tarot deck. She's looking at a very old-fashioned, like an old European village there. So you get this whole thing about memory, ancestry. Sometimes we're carrying baggage that isn't even ours. It's from our ancestry, and it's just been passed along from generation to generation. Beliefs about how the world are. So it's worth looking at that, because you can see the dog there. I believe that's a reference to Hecate. If you're into like the ancient goddesses, you often see her with a dog, a black dog and a white dog. This one is a white dog, and it looks domesticated. So it's about fidelity, but sometimes the moon card is associated with deception, illusion. So that kind of ties back into what I was just saying about things that we carry with us that we're unconscious about necessarily. And then they get in our way because they're just an unconscious belief that we haven't necessarily looked at and examined. You can see the moon there. He's got a little tear. There's that water element going on there. So, yeah, that's the moon in the tarot. And I wanted to mention, I'm going to have a class coming up later in the year. It's going to be probably late September. I'm doing classes that are more of an overall experience. So it's going to be for the fall equinox, and I might do 2 classes because I might do one for the fall equinox and another one for another plant. But we will be going into hawthorn medicine, and I want to do a deep dive with hawthorn. It will be a 2-day workshop, and so it'll be a weekend, and we will work with hawthorn. We'll go out and gather hawthorn. We will make medicine with hawthorn in various ways. We'll do that together. We'll also make a dye out of hawthorn so that you can have piece of cloth afterwards that you can work with, either to make clothing or an altar cloth or whatever you want to make with it. You could even dye wool, that would be fine, and then make something with it. And we'll go into the folklore around the plant and some of the Celtic mythology that goes with that. So keep your eye out for that. I don't have a thing posted. That's another one. I'm like, I don't know if I want to use Eventbrite anymore. So they also charge just like a lot of fees that they didn't used to charge. So does anyone have a online site that they like better for that sort of thing also? Or I don't know, do I want to do this online, or is it better as just an in-person kind of workshop? I really like connecting with people to have these experiences. I find that they're a little more grounded in when they're done in person. So anyway, we'll see about that. I hope you have a wonderful new moon. We're already in the Cancer moon, preparing for tomorrow. So go ahead and work with your crystals and your plants and make your intentions. And I hope this was helpful in some way. I will see you next time in about 2 weeks for the full moon. All right, take care, y'all.